Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it, and also with food, and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and my guest this week is Jonathan, who was always a heavy child, and as an adult, his weight rose to over 400 pounds. He tried all the diets, but his weight still yo-yoed all the time, and he was never able to get his weight off sustainably. And he was becoming so desperate that he made an appointment for weight loss surgery. So, what changed? You'll find out in this episode. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And while you're at aftersugarclub.com, why not take the cravings quiz? I created this cravings quiz specifically to help you start thinking more deeply about what triggers your cravings. And when you do this quiz, you'll get your personalized score as well as my practical tips to help you take your first step to get rid of cravings. Those free resources are at aftersugarclub.com. And also, come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at MyLifeAfterSugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration, so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, let's get to my chat with Jonathan. Okay, so I'm talking today with Jonathan, who's down in Florida. And Jonathan, can you tell us a little bit about your background growing up with food, especially with sugar?
Sure. Well, I was always that fat kid. I got fatter as I got older, but I grew up in a family where eating was definitely a reward. Not in that we didn't have food, but eating was, a big part of our lifestyle. And I can tell you, love my mother, but my mother was definitely, a cook that used a lot of things, sugar being one of them. I loved eating candy. I don't know a kid, honestly, who doesn't like to eat candy, but I like to eat candy maybe a little bit more than others. And my mother never really stopped me. My parents never really stopped me from eating candy. In fact, I ate candy all the time. So I was that, like I said, I was that proverbial fat kid my whole life.
And so how old were you when you realized that you were fat?
Um, That's a good question. I mean, I always knew that I was a bigger kid. It never really bothered me. I was always very calm. Well, let me rephrase that. Not, it never bothered me. While I was young, it didn't really bother me that much. But I do remember there were times when, like, for instance, if we would all go swimming in the summertime, I always felt a little bit self-conscious about it. Again, I was very confident, but there were things like I did not like to play. Again, I don't know if this is something that you can relate to, but as young boys in the, where I grew up in New Jersey, by the way, we played a lot of sports, and sometimes you had to play, rather than, no one had uniforms, so it was shirts and skins. So when we were kids, when we were playing sports, sometimes you had to be shirts and skins. That meant one team took their shirts off, one team left their shirts on. I hated being on the skin team because I was a little bit bigger than the rest. But again, like I said, I was always very confident, but I knew that I was kind of a bigger kid. And as I got older, I kept gaining weight. I mean, I was never, as a kid, I was never massive. I was just a big kid. I had a belly, but I just lived with it, and I dealt with it. And I never really thought about, why. Maybe I did think about why, but I didn't care enough to change that why.
And what was the answer to that why at the beginning when you first started asking why?
I think the answer was, well, hey, I'm just a big kid. I'm just my father was 6'5", my mother was 5'9", but I just, I guess, made the excuse to myself that, hey, I'm this is the way. Maybe I don't exercise enough, which wasn't true, because like a kid, I was like a wild man. I was running around everywhere, doing all kinds of, activities, 24 hours a day. So it was just, I was not eating properly.
Hmm. And so, what did that translate into in real terms, the not eating properly?
Well, like I said, I was eating all the wrong foods. I loved candy. I loved donuts. I loved ice cream. I love to eat all the things that are loaded with sugar, because obviously, I mean, for me, and looking back on it today, 61 years, well, 60, I didn't think this when I was 0 years old, but, looking back on it today, I realized for me, sugar was like heroin. If I had a little, I had to have more. And it was just that thing that gave me comfort, that gave me pleasure, was eating something sweet. And again, like every kid, sweets are a reward. And I like to be rewarded. So I kept eating more and more sugar.
Yeah, makes total sense. And then when did that answer to the question why start to change?
Well, honestly, it didn't really change for me until I was 59 years old.
Huh.
One day I woke up, and again, I make it sound like, hey, I woke up and one day I was 170 pounds and the next day I was 411 pounds, which is not true. But one day I woke up, it was actually on my 59th birthday. I had been, sugar literally was killing me. Yeah, I'd been in and out of the hospital, probably five, six, 8 times for weight related issues. People told me, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die. My kids begged me to stop eating the way I was eating. And I would go to the hospital. And I said, this time I'm going to change. And I'd go right back home after I got out of the hospital and go right back to the way I was eating. And I would say to myself, oh, people don't understand me. This is just the way I am. And I'm not going to stop. And, I always say that I am the proclaimed king of yo-yo dieting. I've been on, if there's a diet, I've been on it. I'm telling you, I've been on over 100 diets. I did every fad diet under the sun. I'd say I've lost and gained thousands of pounds. I did the paleo diet, lost 86 pounds, put 90 pounds back on. Every diet I went on, I would lose weight because I wasn't doing something that was sustainable. And I on my 59th birthday, a friend of mine um, sent me, because she want this woman who is now my fiance, but her name is Vicky, just for the record. Vicky wanted to come see me, and I had just gotten out of the hospital, and I was, feeling horrible about myself. And I was married once, so this is a second relationship or a second marriage, but we she wanted to come see me, and I said, she lives in New York and I was down in Florida. I said, no, this was in the very beginning of our relationship. Now, I dated her all through high school and we got back together, both of us got divorced. It was a whole long story, but anyway, that story's not the relevant part. But she wanted to come see me, and I made up every excuse under the sun to not have her come see me, because I didn't want her to see what I looked like. I looked subhuman. I didn't look like a human being. Really, I looked like someone put an air hose in me and blew me up to maximum density. And she said, okay, I'm going to do something really stupid for your birthday. And she sent me this this singing pink gorillagram. This guy came to my, and now remember, this is April in Florida, so it's hot. And this guy came to my office in this singing pink gorilla suit and sang me, happy birthday song, and gave me a note from her. And it was, it was a really great thing. And then I realized I had to take a picture and send it to her and say, hey, the gorilla came. Thank you so much. So I took the picture. I had somebody, one of the people in my office come and take the picture. and I could not believe what I saw. I couldn't believe what I looked like. It was a moment for me. I had been masterful over the years, over the first 59 years, of not seeing myself in any reflective surface. I always joke and say it's incredible that I could, in the morning, brush my teeth and shave and not realize what I looked like. I mean, maybe because it happened slowly, but at 411 pounds, you have to realize at some point.
What
So
was that? Was it that photo with the pink gorilla that made you realize?
yeah, I sent the picture. I tried to edit myself out as much as I could, but I looked at that picture and I couldn't unsee it. It was the first time I had and I had seen myself in hundreds of pictures before, but for some reason I couldn't unsee myself, and I panicked,
Mm.
and I decided that I not for lack of honestly not knowing what else to do, I decided I was going to go have weight loss surgery, and I was going to do it in Mexico because I could go there and no one would know, and you know, and I called up a place that was highly recommended in Mexico. I made an appointment, and I made a date for sometime in May of 2023. I don't remember the exact date. And one of the things they told me was that try to stop eating as much food. Try to eat less, because when you go through the surgery, you're not going to be able to eat a lot of food. So start to cut back.
Mhm.
And that really struck a chord with me. And I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I didn't want to do weight loss surgery because for any number of reasons, but not the least of which is I felt like it was cheating. But more importantly, I felt like I don't want to cut out a part of my body. God forbid something goes wrong, and and honestly, eating was my only joy.
Yeah.
So to take that joy away from myself, I really didn't want to do it. But that thing that they said, hey, try to eat less. Try to really focus on what you're eating and how much you eat and how frequently you eat, that really struck a chord with me. So I said, all right, I'm going to do that until the date comes. And from that moment on, literally, I can tell you it was April 24th, 2023. From that day on, I decided I'm going to just be really mindful about everything I put in my mouth. I'm not going to read uh, I'm not going to read ingredient labels. I'm not going to, cut out carbs. I'm not going to cut out anything. I'm just going to be mindful of what I put in my mouth. Every time I open my mouth, I'm going to think about it. Am I hungry? Is this something I want to eat? Is this the right thing to eat? And that's what I started to do. And the next day, literally the next day, I had lost 4 pounds just by doing that. And I like to say, look, that's a crazy amount of weight. I understand that. But when you have a lot of weight to lose, you can lose it quickly.
Yeah.
And I had at 411 pounds, I had a lot of weight to lose. And over the next couple of weeks, I was just really mindful about what I ate. Every time I opened my mouth, I thought, is this what I want? Am I eating the right thing? And again, I'll go back. I say this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. We all know what to eat.
Mhm.
You don't need a diet plan. You don't need a meal plan. And everybody's meal plan would be different anyway. You know what to eat. You know that eating, I'm just giving you an example because I like to eat oatmeal in the morning. You know that eating oatmeal is better than eating Captain Crunch. You don't need a doctor to tell you that. So that's what I did. And over the course of the next year and a half, 2 years, I lost 140 pounds
Whoa.
without a shot, a pill, a diet, a meal plan, any meal prepping. And the most important part was I didn't set one foot into the gym ever. I did no exercise.
Whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. You didn't get the weight loss surgery, right?
No, I canceled that when I started to realize that I was in control. I was the one in control. I controlled what went into my mouth.
Whoa. So you didn't get the surgery, you didn't step foot in a gym, you did no exercise, you didn't cut out anything from your diet. It was mindful eating, and then you lost 140 pounds in what space of time? I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. Like this review from Salamanca32, who said, "Great podcast. Love this podcast. So empowering." And also this 5-star review that says, "I appreciate the length of these podcasts. Short enough to listen without daydreaming, long enough to be informative. Very well done." Thank you. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
Well, again, because I was so heavy, I lost probably in the first year, I would say about 85 or 90 pounds. Wow. It was probably, in the first year, actually, I lost over 100 pounds. I take that back. It was over 100 pounds. And again, I just want to say this because I think it's really important. I didn't go to the gym because I was so fat. I really had I couldn't walk 100 yards. There were times when, I would go do things with my kids and I couldn't walk far enough to do those things. I would have to sit and rest. I know that sounds crazy, but honestly, walking 100 yards, I was winded. I couldn't, my body just couldn't do it anymore. So I didn't exercise because I was so fat. Now, looking back on it, I think maybe that was an excuse, because I didn't want to go to the gym. But I do think it's important to know that, or for me, when I talk to people about how to lose weight, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. I could have gone to the gym for hours a day. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have lost more weight. I probably would have. And I'm definitely not saying exercise is bad, because exercise, of course, it's good. But you can, if you're in that place where you're so big and you're so unhealthy, you can lose a significant amount of weight without going to the gym. Now I walk because I can walk. I walk about 5 miles a day, and I do that because I enjoy it, not because I'm doing it for exercise, but it's just a kind of a little place for me to go and be quiet and do my own thing. Yeah. Sometimes I'll walk with other people, but a lot of times I walk alone. So yeah, it really comes down to food. I believe what you eat and how you eat it, and I don't mean how you eat it, I should say the quantity that you eat. I was shocked at how much less food that I could eat, and how I could survive on actually good food. And again, we all know what's good and bad, and I don't believe there's good and bad food, but we all know what we should be eating. I mean, I hear people say, "Oh, I don't know how to do." Yes, you do. It's very simple. It's calories in versus the calories you burn. And again, I never counted calories. I never wrote down what I ate. You just know we're all built with that in our DNA. Some of us, like myself, we chose to make believe that, hey, I don't know how to do this. Well, that's complete bullshit. Everybody knows how to lose weight.
So, and yet the diet industry is making billions and billions, I guess making us believe that we don't know how to lose weight. But here's my question for you. For your calories in, calories out approach, does it matter where the calories come from, which types of foods the calories come from?
Well, scientifically, absolutely not. Your body doesn't know whether you're getting. There was a guy, I don't recall his name, but he did an experiment where he only ate Twinkies, and it's famous. You can Google it. He only ate Twinkies.
I'm sorry, you cut up. He only ate what?
He only ate Twinkies,
Okay.
those little cakes.
Yeah.
And he was a doctor, a scientist, and he only ate Twinkies, I think, for 90 days, and he lost weight because he ate less calories than his body needed to burn. Now, having said that, I would not say that eating uh, a couple thousand calories of donuts is good for you. I mean, there are other, obviously sugar is not great for your body, but scientifically, it's calories in versus calories out. If you eat Twinkies, you're not going to be as full and satisfied as if you're eating lean protein or healthy fats. And again, I don't I didn't approach this scientifically at all. I approach this with common sense. So I do think that you can eat it. One of the things that I always tell people is during the process, during when I lost the weight, and now I'm maintaining the weight. When I did that, and even to this day, sometimes I feed my soul, which means if I want a donut, I'm going to eat a donut. I'm just going to be mindful about what else I eat in a day. I don't know if a donut honestly has 300 calories, 500 calories, or 100 calories. I never really care. I mean, actually, that's not true. I do know now, but I didn't know. So if I was going to feed my soul, if I was going to eat, chicken parmesan with cheese on, okay, I knew that I had to kind of cut back on the other stuff that I ate during the day. It's a total common sense approach to eating. So the short answer to your question is no, I don't think it matters what you eat, but of course it matters what you eat if you want to be full and satisfied.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And for some of us, many of us, myself included, and let me know if this is you as well, sugar actually seems to hijack our ability to A, have common sense, and B, stop at one donut or the equivalent.
Absolutely 100%. I said to you earlier, sugar was like heroin for me. Once I started eating it, I wanted more and more and more. And it is, I do think sugar is like a drug. It stops you from making smart choices because it's good. It feels good. It tastes good. It's what your brain wants. But
Yeah.
now looking back on that, it's because I understand that fact, I can eat one donut and walk away. Don't get me wrong, I'd like to eat two or three, but but I eat one. I said, okay, I fed my soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I make the distinction between moderators and abstainers. And abstainers like myself and many others can't do what you just described. We just can't stop after one, even after feeding our soul. And for us, it's more freeing, more liberating to not eat any at all.
Well, if you can do that, that I think that's great. I mean, I would like to be. I would like to. Nah, I take that back. I would not like to never eat sugar. I like the treat of sugar, but I certainly um, don't. I don't eat. I'm not exaggerating here. I could eat a half a dozen donuts before when I was and think nothing of it. And honestly, after the first bite, I wasn't even thinking anymore. The
Yeah.
sugar took over, and I was just going. And I said, well, if I had two, I might as well have three. Well, if I had three, I might as well have four.
Yeah.
And before you know it, I literally would eat six donuts. It was crazy.
Yep, it's crazy. It makes us feel crazy. And it's that feeling of craziness that, some of us who decide not to eat sugar anymore, we don't big it's not because sugar is morally bad, although we can agree that it's not, certainly not good. It's because we don't want to have this feeling of craziness in our lives anymore.
Yeah, well, I like I said, sugar definitely made me feel crazy.
Yeah.
But again, I do think that sometimes, and again, if you're an abstainer, that's great. But I do like the idea of being able to feed my soul. In fact, for me, what I always told myself was, okay, I'm not going to eat that today. I can eat it tomorrow. But for right now, I'm not going to eat that. I know the donut store is always going to be there. It's not going anywhere. I
Right.
know the ice cream will always be in the supermarket. But for today, I'm not going to eat that. And that's really the way that I learned to modify my intake of, those foods that typical people would say are bad.
Yeah, yeah. And so what can you explain in your experience what made this that you're experiencing now more sustainable than all those 100 diets you tried?
Well, a couple things. The first thing, and I believe anybody that is going on a diet, is you have to define what your why is. I don't believe that people have motivation is great and discipline is for the military. I don't believe that people can remain motivated and disciplined. I don't believe that. I had to figure out what my why was. Why did I want to lose the weight? And for me, the why was pretty simple because I wanted to be alive. I was literally on 8 different medications, just keeping my body alive. I was abusing it at every step. So my why was simple. I wanted to be alive. I wanted to be around for my children and my grandchildren. So I think you have to define your why. I think that's really important. And when you think you know your why, then dig a little deeper and then find your real why. And after you do that, after you dig deeper, dig one level lower and really understand what your why is. Because I was on every diet, and my goal on every diet was to get to a certain number. I want to get down to this weight. I want to get down to that weight. I want to fit in a smaller, size pants, whatever. Those are not motivating. And if you hit a roadblock along the way, like, if you're on a diet and you blow it, you make a mistake, it's easy to quit when you're wise. I want to get to 260 pounds, whatever your why is, but when or whatever that goal is. But when you know your why, when you know why you need to lose the weight, not want, need to lose the weight, it's easy I guess, to stay on track. And by the way, nobody's perfect. I was not perfect along the way. The big thing was for me was if I made a mistake, if I fed my soul, if I, ate something I shouldn't have, I just kept going. I didn't quit. I kept going. When you're on a diet, it's easy. Oh, I had a bad day, so I'll start again Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that. I started with the next choice. My whole philosophy is making small, smart choices.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all about those are the things that add up. I mean, you can't change your life overnight. Make small, smart choices.
And from what I'm hearing from you, none of those 100 diets, and I say 100, you know what I mean? It's a
No, I mean literally 100 died.
okay. All right. So none of those ever got you thinking more deeply about your why?
Never,
Mm.
because I had a plan to follow, and if I just stayed on the plan, that was what I was focused on.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was on Atkins, Paleo, you name it, I was on it, and as long as I followed the plan, then I would continue to get closer to my goal of weighing a certain number. But it didn't really motivate me. It didn't really, I didn't understand why I was doing it.
Yeah, I get it. Totally get it. And that is my point on this podcast and in my program is to say, look, you can look out there and diets actually make you look out there to the number on the scale, to the foods, to the good, the bad, all these things. And in my humble opinion, I think diets prevent us from thinking more deeply.
No question about it. I mean, the bottom line here is I took personal accountability. Right. I didn't outsource my accountability to some diet framework.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I have to do this. I want to do this because I want to be healthier. I want to live.
Yeah.
And a diet is really, honestly, all a diet is, you outsourcing your accountability to somebody else.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I agree 100%. Not that it matters, but I do.
Oh, it matters. It definitely matters.
So, as a one last question or one last thing, what would be your advice for the first step that someone could take to making long-lasting, sustainable changes for their weight, but for their health as well?
Yeah. Well, I would say first thing you have to do is really understand why you want to do it. I mean, if you don't do that, you're never going to get that sustainable weight loss. But the first step in all this is making one small smart choice. It's shocking how powerful that choice can be. So I had a salad instead of French fries. And really, celebrate that victory, because it is a victory. You made a small, smart choice. And people, are very quick to jump on themselves and say, "Oh, I blew it up." No, you didn't. You made one bad choice. But you know what? The great news is, the next thing you eat, you can make a good choice.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Oh, Jonathan, you're very inspiring. Thank you for talking to me today.
My pleasure. It was an enjoyable conversation.
Gosh, what an inspiring story that Jonathan has. Yes, for his actual weight loss, but I find that it's even more inspiring to hear Jonathan talk about his mindset shifts and his own commitment to himself. Listening to Jonathan talk about his why makes me think of one of the very first assignments that I give in the Freedom from Cravings Formula program, which is when I ask my program participants to think about their big why. And in fact, it's not just their big why, we go much deeper than that. And in fact, that's what Jonathan was saying. Going deeper and really thinking about the changes that you want to make makes all the difference. And that's exactly why I created my program, the Freedom from Cravings Formula. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly, and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life when you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can talk directly to me on a free clarity call at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on Program at the top. You'll also find the link with the show notes together with this episode. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak to you soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.